The Galactic Council had ruled the stars for 12,000 years. They controlled 847 different species across 3 spiral arms of the galaxy. They had seen empires rise and fall. They had watched young civilizations discover fire, then electricity, then space travel. And in all that time, they had never once thought about the small blue planet called Earth. That changed when humans built their first faster-than-light engine. Ambassador. Elena Vasquez stepped off the transport ship and took her first breath of alien air. The docking bay was enormous. It could have held 100 football stadiums inside it. Strange ships of every shape and size filled the space around her. Some looked like crystals. Others looked like living creatures. A few seemed to bend light itself, making her eyes hurt when she looked at them too long. She was 53 years old. She had gray streaks in her black hair and lines around her dark eyes. She had spent 30 years as a diplomat, solving problems between nations that had hated each other for centuries. She had talked warlords into peace. She had convinced enemies to share water and food. She thought she was ready for anything. She was wrong. The guards who escorted her were not human. They stood 8 feet tall and had skin like polished metal. Their eyes glowed soft blue, and they did not blink. They did not speak to her. They simply walked, and she followed. The hallways of the council station seemed to go on forever. The walls were made of something that looked like glass but felt warm when she touched it. Strange symbols floated in the air, holographic signs in languages she could not read. Beings of every possible shape moved past her. Some walked on 2 legs. Some walked on 6. Some floated. Some slithered. None of them looked at her. She was nothing to them. Just another primitive creature from another primitive world. After what felt like hours, the guard stopped before a massive door. It was made of pure white light. Alina could not see what was on the other side. One of the guards finally spoke. Its voice sounded like stones grinding together. "The council will see you now. Do not speak unless spoken to. Do not move unless permitted. Do not expect mercy." The door of light opened, and Elena walked through. The council chamber was the most beautiful thing she had ever seen. It was also the most terrifying. The room was shaped like a sphere, and she stood on a small platform in the very center. All around her, rising up in every direction, were thousands of seats, and in those seats sat the rulers of the galaxy. She saw creatures made of living fire. She saw beings that looked like clouds of colored gas. She saw things with too many eyes and things with no eyes at all. She saw machines that thought and crystals that breathed. Every single one of them was looking at her. At the highest point of the chamber sat the High Arbiter. Its name was Zethkarin, and it was not made of matter at all. It was pure energy, shaped into something that almost looked like a body. It glowed with soft golden light, and when it spoke, the words appeared directly in Elena's mind. "You are the human." But it was not a question. Elena nodded anyway. "Your species has committed a grave crime against the galactic order. You have developed faster-than-light travel without permission. You have expanded beyond your home system without approval. And you have built colonies on worlds that belong to the Velith Dominion." Elena kept her face calm. She had read the reports. 3 small mining colonies on 3 small moons. Worlds that were empty when humans arrived. Worlds that showed no signs of alien life or alien claim. The Velith claimed those worlds 200 years before your species learned to make fire, Zethkarin continued. They are legally and rightfully Velith territory. Your presence there is an act of invasion. From somewhere in the chamber, Elena heard a sound like laughter. She turned and saw them. The Velith. They looked almost like humans, but wrong. Their skin was too pale, almost gray. Their eyes were too large and completely black. Their smiles showed too many teeth. The Velith ambassador rose from his seat. His voice was smooth and cold. "We are not unreasonable," he said. "We do not demand war. We simply demand justice. The humans will pay compensation for their crime. 60 trillion galactic credits. They will surrender all faster-than-light technology. They will dismantle their fleet. and they will accept protected species status, which will keep them safely on their own world until they learn to behave properly. Elena did the math in her head. 60 trillion credits. At current exchange rates, that was more than the entire economic output of Earth and all its colonies for the next 400 years. They were not asking for payment. They were asking for slavery. You have 7 galactic cycles to comply, Zethkorin announced. That is approximately one of your Earth years. If you do not comply, the Velith Dominion will be authorized to take enforcement action. Your colonies will be destroyed. Your fleet will be eliminated, and your homeworld will be placed under permanent quarantine. The chamber fell silent. Thousands of alien eyes watched Elena, waiting for her to beg, waiting for her to cry, waiting for her to do what every other young species had done. And faced with the power of the Council, Elena thought about her daughter back on Earth. She thought about her grandson, who had just learned to walk. She thought about the 8 billion people who were counting on her to save them. And then she smiled. It was not a happy smile. It was not a friendly smile. It was the smile of a woman who had just made a decision that would change everything. The temperature in the chamber seemed to drop. Several of the alien delegates shifted in their seats. Even Zethkorin's golden glow flickered for just a moment. I understand, Elena said. Her voice was quiet, but somehow it filled the entire chamber. I will bring your terms to my government. Good, the Velith ambassador said. We knew your species would see reason. You are, after all, very young, very small, very alone. Elena turned to look at him. Her dark eyes met his black ones. We will respond, she said in our own way. Something in her voice made the Velith stop smiling. Something in her eyes made Zethkorin lean forward. Something in the way she stood, small and fragile and completely unafraid, sent a whisper of unease through the ancient chamber. But the moment passed. The council moved on to other business. Elena was escorted out. The guards did not speak to her. The aliens in the hallway did not look at her. She was nothing to them. Just another primitive creature from another primitive world. They had given ultimatums like this before. They had broken younger species 1,000 times. It was simply how the galaxy worked. The strong ruled. The weak obeyed. There was no other way. They had never met humans before. On the transport ship home, Elena sat alone in her quarters. She looked out at the stars streaming past. She thought about everything she had seen, everything she had heard, everything that was at stake. Then she opened a secure channel to Earth and spoke 4 words. Begin Project Prometheus. Somewhere in the dark of space. Humanity started to wake up, and the galaxy had no idea what was coming. The message reached Earth in less than a second. Quantum communication was one of the few things humans had figured out on their own, and they had made it fast. Very fast. Director Marcus Chen was eating dinner with his family when his phone buzzed. He looked at the screen and saw 2 words that made his blood run cold. Project Prometheus. He kissed his wife, hugged his children, and walked out the door. He did not know when he would see them again. 3 hours later, he stood in the deepest bunker on Earth. It was built inside a mountain in Switzerland, half a mile below the surface. Only 200 people in the world knew it existed. The walls were lined with screens, and every screen showed the same thing. Elena Vasquez's face. She told them everything. The council. The ultimatum. The Velith. The impossible debt. The threat of destruction. When she finished, the room was silent. 40 of the most powerful people on Earth sat around the table. Presidents, prime ministers, generals, scientists. They had spent their whole lives competing against each other, fighting over borders and resources and ideas. But now, for the first time in human history, they all wanted the same thing. Survival Director Chen stood up. He was 61 years old, with short gray hair and tired eyes. He had spent his entire career preparing for threats that he hoped would never come. Now the worst threat imaginable had arrived, and he was ready. 30 years ago, he said, a group of strategic planners created a series of contingency plans. They imagined every possible scenario. Asteroid impacts, alien invasion, galactic war. Most people thought they were crazy. Most people laughed at them. He pressed a button, and a file appeared on every screen. The file was marked with the highest security classification Earth had ever created. They called it Project Prometheus. It was designed for exactly this situation. A hostile galaxy. Superior enemies. No chance of military victory? The President of the United States leaned forward. If we can't fight them, what can we do? Chen smiled. It was the same kind of smile Alina had given the council. Out! We! Outsmart them! The plan was elegant. It was ruthless. And it required every human being on Earth and beyond to work together in perfect coordination. First, they needed time. Alina returned to the council 3 more times over the following months. Each time, she begged for extensions. She pleaded for more negotiation. She acted like a frightened representative of a frightened species. The council granted her requests. They saw no reason to rush. Humans were weak. Humans were primitive. Humans would break eventually. The Velith ambassador watched Alina grovel and felt proud. His species had crushed dozens of younger races. Humans would be no different. Perhaps easier, even. They seemed so desperate. So pathetic, he had no idea what was happening behind the scenes. On Earth, factories that had been closed for decades roared back to life. But they were not building weapons. They were not building warships. They were building something much more dangerous. Computers. Thousands of them. Millions of them. The most powerful quantum processors ever created, all linked together into a single network. In orbit around Mars, engineers worked in secret shipyards. They were not building a fleet to fight the Velith. They were building something else. Relay stations. Hundreds of them, small enough to fit in a backpack, but powerful enough to reach across the galaxy. And on Titan, the largest moon of Saturn, construction crews worked around the clock on a project so secret that even most world leaders did not know about it. They called it the Prometheus Array. It would take 11 months to complete. They had 12 months before the deadline. While the engineers built, the spies went to work. Human intelligence operatives spread across the galaxy. They took jobs on space stations. They worked in alien restaurants and alien hotels. They listened. They watched. They learned what they discovered changed everything. The Galactic Council was not as powerful as it pretended to be. It was held together by economics, not military force. Every species in the galaxy depended on a single financial system, a single network that controlled all trade, all banking, all wealth. It had been built by an ancient species called the Architects, who had disappeared millions of years ago. The system was old. The system was complicated. And the system had weaknesses. A young programmer named Yuki Tanaka found the first weakness. She was 26 years old, born in Tokyo, educated in California. She had been recruited by Director Chen because she could see patterns that other people missed. For 3 months, she did nothing but study the galactic financial database. She barely slept. She barely ate. She just stared at numbers until her eyes burned. Then one night, at 3 in the morning, she saw it. The system was designed to be efficient. Every transaction was connected. Every account was linked. It was like a massive spider web stretching across the entire galaxy. And like a spider web, if you pulled the right thread, the whole thing would shake. She ran to Director Chen's office. He was asleep on his couch, but he woke up instantly when she burst through the door. "I found it," she said, her hands shaking. "I found how to break them."
Oh.
Chen looked at the data she showed him. He looked at the connections. He looked at the vulnerabilities. And for the first time in months, he laughed. "They built their whole civilization on a house of cards," he said, "and they have no idea." But economic warfare was only part of the plan. Humanity needed allies. They needed friends in a galaxy that saw them as nothing more than insects. Alina Vasquez took on this mission herself. Between her performances at the council, she traveled in secret. She visited species that the Council had forgotten. Species that had been bullied by the Velith. Species that had suffered in silence for centuries because they thought they had no choice. She found the Korith, a reptilian species whose homeworld had been strip-mined by Velith corporations. She found the Mindari, a peaceful race of telepaths who had been forced to work as slaves in Velith communication centers. She found the Broken Ones, a species so thoroughly conquered that they had forgotten their own name. To each of them, Elena said the same thing. We are going to stand up to them. We are going to show the galaxy that the Velith can be beaten. And when we do, we want you standing with us. Most of them were afraid. Most of them said no. But some of them, the bravest ones, said yes. They did not know how humans planned to win. They did not know what Project Prometheus was. But they saw something in Elena's eyes. Something that gave them hope for the first time in generations. The months passed. The deadline grew closer. The Velith continued to laugh at the pathetic humans who kept begging for more time. Director Chen received reports every day. The Prometheus array was almost complete. The relay stations were in position. The quantum computers were ready. The financial vulnerabilities had been mapped down to the smallest detail. 142 species had secretly agreed to support humanity. When the time came, everything was ready. On the last night before the deadline, Chen stood alone in his office. He looked at the stars through his window. Somewhere out there, an entire galaxy was waiting to watch humanity surrender. They were going to be very surprised. He picked up his phone and sent one final message to Elena, who was already on her way back to the Council. Give them our answer. Humanity had been preparing for 12 months. The galaxy had been laughing at them for 12 months. Now, the laughing was about to stop. The trap was set, and the Velith were about to walk right into it. The council chamber was full. Every seat was taken. Every species in the galaxy had sent representatives to watch the humans finally break. It was going to be a good show. Young species always cried when they surrendered. Some of them begged. Some of them screamed. The Velith ambassador had brought snacks. Ambassador Elena Vasquez walked into the chamber alone. She wore a simple black suit. Her gray-streaked hair was pulled back tight. Her face showed nothing. No fear, no anger, no hope. She was a mask made of flesh. The High Arbiter Zethkarin glowed brighter than usual. Even ancient beings of pure energy enjoyed watching lesser creatures suffer. Human, Zethkarin said, its words appearing in Elena's mind. Your time has ended. Have you brought the council's payment? Have you agreed to our terms? Elena stood on the small platform in the center of the sphere. Thousands of alien eyes looked down at her. She was so small, so fragile, so alone. She took a deep breath. You demanded 60 trillion credits, she said. Her voice was calm and clear. You demanded our technology. You demanded our freedom. You told us to kneel. The Velith ambassador leaned forward in his seat. His black eyes were shining with pleasure. Yes, he said. We did. And now you will give us what we asked for, or we will take it by force. Lena looked up at him. She looked at Zethkarin. She looked at the thousands of species who had come to watch humanity die. Then she smiled. We have decided to pay, she said, but we will pay in our own currency. She raised her hand and snapped her fingers. Every screen in the council chamber flickered. Every holographic display went dark for exactly 1 second. When they came back on, they showed something new. Something that made the Velith ambassador drop his snacks. A human face appeared on every screen. It was Director Marcus Chen, broadcasting live from Earth. Greetings to the Galactic Council, he said. My name is Marcus Chen. I am the Director of Earth Strategic Command. For the past 12 months, you have watched us beg. You have watched us stall. You have laughed at us and called us primitive. He paused and smiled the same cold smile that Elena wore. You should not have laughed. The screens changed again. Now they showed data, numbers, records, transactions, 17 centuries of Velith financial history, laid bare for the entire galaxy to see. The Velith Dominion has been cheating you all, Chen continued. For 1,700 years, They have manipulated the galactic economy. They have bribed council officials. They have stolen resources from protected worlds. They have claimed territories they never visited, never developed, never earned. The chamber erupted in chaos. Species that had been silent for centuries started shouting. The Velith ambassador jumped to his feet. Lies, he screamed. These are lies. Human propaganda. But the data kept coming. Bank records. Communication logs. Secret agreements. Everything was documented. Everything was verified. The evidence was overwhelming, and that was only the beginning. The screens changed again. Now they showed a map of the galaxy. 3 small dots blinked in Velith territory. The human mining colonies. You demanded we leave these worlds, Alina said. You said they were worthless rocks that belonged to the Velith by ancient right. But we did some digging. Literally. The map zoomed in on the 3 colonies. Geological surveys appeared. Chemical analysis. Resource reports. These 3 moons contain the largest deposits of crystalline helion ever discovered. Enough to power the entire galaxy for 10,000 years? And we have been mining it for months. The chamber went silent. Crystalline helion was the rarest energy source in existence. Wars had been fought over single crystals. And humans had been sitting on an ocean of it. The Velith knew, Alina continued. They claimed these worlds 2 centuries ago because their long-range scans detected the deposits. They were waiting until they had the technology to mine it safely. They never expected a primitive species to get there first. The Velith ambassador's gray face went white. His black eyes went wide. He tried to speak, but no words came out. Chen appeared on the screens again. But we are not greedy. We are not conquerors. We do not want to control the galaxy's energy supply. So we are making an offer. The screens showed a list of names. 142 species. The Korath. The Mindari. The Broken Ones. Dozens of others. Species that had suffered under Velith domination for generations. We have signed exclusive trade agreements with these civilizations. Fair agreements. Equal partnerships. They will share in the crystalline helion. They will finally have the resources to rebuild their worlds, feed their people, and live with dignity. In the chamber, representatives from those species rose to their feet. Some of them were crying. Some of them were laughing. All of them were looking at the Velith with something new in their eyes. Defiance. And there's one more thing, Alina said. She pressed a button on a small device in her hand. Across the galaxy, 500 relay stations activated simultaneously. The Prometheus array came online. The Council controls all communication in the galaxy. Every message, every broadcast, every conversation goes through systems that you monitor and censor. That ends today. The screens showed the network spreading across the stars. Quantum relays connecting world to world, species to species, mind to mind. We call it the free network. Instant communication, available to anyone, controlled by no one. No fees, no surveillance, no filters. The truth will flow freely from now on. The High Arbiter Zethkurin rose from its seat. Its golden light flickered with something that might have been fear. You cannot do this, it said. You are violating 1,000 galactic laws. You are destabilizing the entire economic order. You are destroying everything we have built. Lena looked up at the ancient being. She was small. She was fragile. She was just one human woman standing alone in a chamber full of gods. But she was not afraid. You threatened our children, she said. You threatened our future. You gave us a choice between slavery and death. So we chose a third option. She turned to face the Velith ambassador. His world was crumbling around him. His economy was collapsing in real time. His allies were abandoning him. His secrets were being broadcast to every corner of the galaxy. You thought you were punishing us, Alina said. You thought you were teaching us our place? But you made a mistake. You made us angry. And you gave us 12 months to plan. She stepped closer to him. Her dark eyes burned into his black ones. This was the gentle response. This was us being kind. We could have destroyed your fleet. We could have poisoned your worlds. We could have wiped your species from existence. Her voice dropped to a whisper that somehow filled the entire chamber. We chose not to. Remember that. Remember that we had the power to end you, and we showed mercy, because that is who humans are. We do not forget those who threaten us. But we also know that true victory does not come from destruction. She turned back to face the council. The Velith owe us nothing now. We consider the debt paid. We will keep our colonies. We will keep our technology. And we will take our place among the stars as equals, not as slaves. The chamber was silent. Thousands of species stared at the small human woman who had just rewritten the rules of galactic civilization. Zethkorin spoke, its voice barely a whisper in Elena's mind. What are you? Elena smiled one last time. We are humanity, and we are just getting started. Somewhere in the chamber, a single delegate began to applaud. Then another. Then another. Soon, half the council was on its feet, cheering for the species they had dismissed as primitive. Just 1 year ago, the galaxy would never be the same, and humanity was only beginning to show what it could. The news spread across the galaxy like fire? Through dry grass. Within hours, every species on every world knew what the humans had done. They watched the recordings of Elena standing alone in the council chamber. They saw the Velith ambassador's face turn white with fear. They heard the words that would echo through history. This was the gentle response. On the Velith homeworld, chaos erupted. Their currency collapsed overnight. Banks closed their doors. Businesses shut down. Citizens who had lived comfortable lives suddenly found themselves with nothing. They filled the streets, demanding answers from leaders who had none to give. The Velith government tried to control the story. They called the human evidence fake. They said it was all a trick, a lie, a manipulation by primitive creatures who did not understand galactic politics. But the free network made their lies impossible to hide. Every document was verified. Every transaction was traced. Every crime was proven beyond doubt. Allies who had stood with the Velith for centuries quietly stepped away. Trade partners canceled their contracts. Military allies refused to answer calls. The Dominion that had bullied the galaxy for thousands of years found itself utterly alone in the council chamber. Emergency sessions ran day and night. Species that had never spoken against the Velith now lined up to share their own stories. The Korath showed evidence of illegal mining operations that had destroyed 3 of their colony worlds. The Mindari revealed that their telepaths had been forced to spy on other species for Velith intelligence. The Broken Ones finally remembered their true name. They were the Sithani, and they demanded justice for 2,000 years of slavery. The High Arbiter Zethkorin watched it all with ancient eyes. In 12,000 years, the Council had never faced anything like this. The old order was crumbling, and there was nothing anyone could do to stop it, but the biggest shock was still coming. 2 weeks after Elena's speech, Director Chen made another broadcast. This time, his face appeared not just in the council chamber, but on every screen on every world that had joined the free network. Billions of beings watched as the human leader spoke. The Velith Dominion has fallen, he said. Their crimes have been exposed. Their power has been broken. Many of you are waiting to see what humans will do next. Will we take their place? Will we become the new masters of the galaxy? He paused. The galaxy held its breath. No. The word hung in the silence. We did not destroy the Velith to become them. We did not tear down their empire to build our own. Humanity does not want to rule the galaxy. We want to live in it as equals, with dignity and freedom. The screens showed images now. Human ships, but not warships. Transport vessels carrying food, medicine, and supplies. They were heading to worlds that had been devastated by Velith exploitation. They were bringing help to species that had never received help from anyone. We call this the Open Hand Initiative, Chen continued. Free aid to any world that needs it. Fair trade with any species that wants it. Technology sharing, medical support, educational resources. No strings attached. No demands. No debts. He leaned forward, and his tired eyes looked directly into the camera. The Veleth taught the galaxy that power means taking from others. We want to show you a different way. True power comes from lifting others up. True strength comes from building, not destroying. We could have crushed the Veleth into dust. We chose mercy instead. And now we choose to help those they hurt. Across the galaxy, beings who had never trusted anyone stared at their screens in disbelief. This had to be a trick. This had to be a trap. No species gave without taking. No civilization helped without demanding something in return. But the ships kept coming. Human doctors landed on plague-ridden worlds and asked for nothing. Human engineers helped rebuild cities that the Veleth had bombed into rubble. Human teachers opened schools where children who had never learned to read finally had a chance. On the Korath homeworld, a human aid worker named James Rivera spent 18 hours a day helping families find clean water. A Korath elder watched him work until he collapsed from exhaustion. Why? The elder asked when James woke up. Why do you help us? We have nothing to give you. We are broken. We are worthless. James looked at the old reptilian being with tired but kind eyes. You are not worthless, he said. No one is worthless. And we help because someone has to. Because if we don't help each other, what is the point of any of this? The elder did not understand. He had lived for 300 years. He had never met anyone like this human. Stories like this spread across the free network. Humans helping strangers. Humans giving without taking. Humans treating every species, no matter how small or how weak. With respect and kindness, the galaxy began to ask questions it had never asked before. Why had they accepted the old ways for so long? Why had they let the powerful species bully the weak ones? Why had they never stood up the way the humans did? 3 months after the fall of the Veleth, a delegation arrived at Earth. They were the Cathari, one of the oldest species in the galaxy. They had watched civilizations rise and fall for millions of years. They had stayed neutral through every war, every conflict, every crisis. They had never taken sides, until now. Ambassador Elena Vasquez met them in the same black suit she had worn to the council. Her hair had more gray in it now. Her eyes had more lines around them. But her smile was warm as she welcomed the ancient beings. The leader of the Cathari was called the Rememberer. She was so old that no one knew her true age. Her body was thin and frail, covered in wrinkled blue skin. Her eyes were silver, like mirrors, reflecting the light of distant stars. We have watched your species, the Rememberer said. Her voice was soft, like wind through leaves. We watched you receive the Council's ultimatum. We expected you to submit, like all the others. Alina nodded. Many did. But you did not submit. You did not beg. And when you won, you did not conquer. In all our years, we have never seen this. Young species always repeat the mistakes of the old. They gain power, and they use it to dominate. It is the way of things. The Rememberer moved closer to Alina. Her silver eyes studied the human's face. You had the power to enslave the Veleth. You chose to help their victims instead. You had the power to control galactic communication. You made it free for everyone. You had the power to hoard the crystalline Helion. You shared it with species who had nothing. She tilted her ancient head. Why? Alina thought about the question. She thought about her daughter and her grandson. She thought about all the humans who had worked so hard over the past year. She thought about James Rivera, asleep in the dirt on a world he had never seen before. Helping people he would never see again. Because we know what it is like to suffer, she said finally. We know what it is like to be afraid and alone. Our history is full of darkness, war, cruelty, hatred. We have done terrible things to each other. She met the Rememberer's silver eyes. But we have also learned. We have grown. We know that the only way forward is together, not as masters and slaves, not as winners and losers, but as partners, as equals, as friends. The Rememberer was silent for a long moment. Then she did something that no Cathari had done in 10,000 years. She bowed. We have waited millions of years for a species like yours, she said. A species that understands that true power is not the ability to destroy. It is the ability to choose not to. She straightened and looked at Alina with something that might have been hope. The Cathari would like to be your friends, Alina smiled. It was not the cold smile she had given the council. It was warm. It was real. It was human. We would like that very much. The galaxy was changing, and for the first time in 12,000 years, it was changing for the better. Humanity had shown them another way. Now it was time to walk that path together. 1 year had passed since. Alina Vasquez stood alone in the council chamber and changed the galaxy forever. Now she stood in that same chamber again, but everything was different. The room had been rebuilt. The old design had placed the powerful species at the top, looking down on everyone else. The new design was a circle. Every seat was on the same level. Every voice had the same weight. It had taken 6 months to complete the construction, and humans had helped pay for it. Alina looked around at the faces filling the chamber. There were more of them now. 14 new seats had been added for species that had never had representation before. The Koroth sat proudly in their section, their scales polished bright for the occasion. The Mindari hummed softly with telepathic joy. The Sithani, no longer called the Broken Ones, wore the ancient symbols of their culture for the first time in 2,000 years, and in the section reserved for the Velith Dominion, only a small delegation remained. Their ambassador was not the same one who had smiled while threatening humanity. That one had resigned in disgrace. The new ambassador was young, quiet, and carried the weight of his species' shame on his thin shoulders. The High Arbiter Zeth-Karin floated at the center of the circle. Its golden light was softer now, less harsh. It had learned humility in the past year. They all had. This session of the Galactic Council will now begin, Zeth-Karin announced. Its voice still appeared directly in everyone's minds, but the tone was different. Less commanding, more respectful. Before we address the regular business, we have a special matter to discuss. The chamber fell silent. Everyone knew what was coming. 1 year ago, a young species from an unremarkable world faced an impossible choice. They could have surrendered. They could have fought. They could have died with honor, or lived as slaves. Zeth-Karin turned its glowing form toward Alina. Instead, they chose a path no one had ever walked before. They defeated their enemies without firing a single weapon. They gained power and used it to help others. They showed the galaxy that there is another way to live among the stars. The ancient being paused. In 12,000 years, it had never made a speech like this. The council has created a new position. We call it the Arbiter of Fair Relations. This person will ensure that no species is ever again bullied into submission. No civilization will be threatened with extinction for the crime of being young. No world will be exploited by those who are stronger. Zeth-Karin extended a tendril of golden light toward Alina.
Ow! We offer this position to humanity.
And we ask Ambassador Alina Vasquez to be the first to hold it. The chamber erupted in applause. Species that had been afraid of each other for millennia now cheered together. Alina felt tears forming in her eyes, but she blinked them away. She had work to do. She walked to the center of the circle and stood beside Zeth-Karin. She looked at the thousands of beings watching her. She thought about everything that had led to this moment. The fear, the anger, the long nights of planning, the friends they had made, the enemies they had forgiven. "Thank you," she said. Her voice was calm, but it carried to every corner of the chamber. "I accept this honor on behalf of all humanity. But I want to make something clear." She turned slowly, meeting as many eyes as she could. We did not do this alone. We could not have done this alone. The Koroth gave us courage when we needed it most. The Mindari shared intelligence that saved countless lives. The Sithani reminded us what we were fighting for. The Cathari gave us wisdom we did not deserve. She smiled at the ancient blue beings sitting in their section. The Rememberer smiled back. And yes, even the Velith played their part. They showed us the kind of galaxy we did not want to live in. They gave us something to stand against. Without them, we might never have found the strength to become who we are. The young Velith ambassador looked up in surprise. He had expected hatred. He had prepared for anger. He had not expected this. "We do not forget what was done to us," Elena continued. We do not pretend it was acceptable. But we also do not believe in eternal punishment. The Velith who committed those crimes are being held accountable. But their children, their grandchildren, their future generations deserve a chance to be better. We will give them that chance. She took a deep breath. That is what humanity believes. That is what we will fight for in this new role. Not revenge. Not domination. Not the old ways of the galaxy. We will fight for second chances. For fairness. For hope. Director Marcus Chin watched the broadcast from his office on Earth. His hair was completely gray now. His face had more lines than ever. But he was smiling. Beside him stood Yuki Tanaka, the young programmer who had found the weakness in the galactic financial system. She was smiling too. We actually did it, she whispered. Chen nodded slowly. We did, but this is just the beginning. The real work starts now. Across the galaxy, humans watched the ceremony on the free network. They saw one of their own standing at the center of galactic civilization, representing not just Earth, but a new way of thinking. Parents held their children and told them that the universe was not as scary as they had thought, that there was a place for humanity among the stars, that they could be proud of who they were. James Rivera watched from the Korath homeworld, where he had decided to stay. He sat with the elder who had asked him why humans help strangers. They watched the ceremony together, sharing a meal that combined foods from both their worlds. Your people are strange, the elder said. James laughed. Yes, we are. But good strange, the elder continued. The kind of strange the galaxy needed. In the council chamber, the ceremony was ending. Alina had taken her oath. She had accepted her new responsibilities. Now she stood at the center of the circle one last time. I want to leave you with one thought, she said. When we received the council's ultimatum, everyone expected us to fail. We were young. We were small. We were alone. The galaxy had seen countless species in our position, and they had all broken. She paused. But you misunderstood us. You saw our youth and thought we were weak. You saw our small numbers and thought we were powerless. You saw that we were alone and thought we had no friends. Her voice grew stronger. You forgot that youth means we have not yet learned what is impossible. You forgot that small numbers forced us to be clever instead of strong. You forgot that being alone taught us the value of every single ally. She looked at Zeth Karin. She looked at the Rememberer. She looked at the young Velith ambassador who was trying so hard to be better than his predecessors. Most of all, you forgot the one thing that makes humans different. We do not give up. We do not surrender. We do not accept that the way things are is the way things must be. She spread her arms wide, taking in the whole chamber, the whole galaxy, the whole future that lay ahead. We are not special because we are strong. We are special because we refuse to stop hoping. We refuse to stop trying. We refuse to stop believing that tomorrow can be better than today. Her voice dropped to almost a whisper, but everyone heard her perfectly. That is what makes us human. And that is what we offer to the galaxy. Not weapons. Not threats. Not domination. Just a simple promise. She smiled, and it was the warmest smile she had ever given. We will never stop trying to make things better. For us, for you, for everyone. The chamber was silent for a long moment. Then the Rememberer rose from her seat. Her ancient silver eyes were wet with tears. In all my years, she said, I have never heard a better definition of hope. She began to applaud. One by one, the rest of the chamber joined her. The sound grew and grew until it shook the walls. Until it